Hey guys, welcome back to my garden. Last year I became really interested in growing fruit in my vegetable garden. So I decided I wanted to add these to the garden, apples. So I'm going to grow apple trees in my raised bed garden, specifically that bed right there. But first let me tell you a little bit about these trees. These are apple trees bred specifically for small spaces. So you can grow them in raised beds or containers. They're from the Fruit Snacks lineup of fruit trees. I chose two different varieties because you need two different varieties to pollinate. They are not self-pollinating. I chose a variety called All Red and another one called Tangy Green because my goal, the end goal, is to have a delicious apple pie, maybe in a few years. I don't know how long it's going to take, but I figure that is a perfect bed for it. This is one of my Vego raised beds, and what's so cool about these Fruit Snacks trees is they only get to be about 2 feet wide and about 8 to 10 feet tall. So I figure I should be able to grow it in that. And if Bunny Guinness can grow these beautiful trees in containers, she's known for cutting out the bottoms of containers and putting gorgeous flowering trees in containers. And by cutting out the bottom of the container, it allows the roots to grow into the soil below. So I thought, these are bottomless containers. I do not have a weed barrier down there. It's below that is just soil. So my thinking is these apple trees will be able to root into this beautiful soil that's in these beds and then continue down into the soil beneath it, and I will have apple trees. So in a perfect world, hopefully, I will have apples that I can harvest in a couple years. So let me give you a close-up of what I have. I should clarify too that I'm not paid to tell you about this. I bought these trees myself, and I just thought it would be fun to experiment and see if I can pull this off in my raised beds. So these are my apple trees. This one here is All Red, 8 to 10 feet tall, about 2 feet wide, and it's hardy to zone 5. It came in a container. And then this one is the Tangy Green, and this one came in a very loose burlap wrap. So the plan is to plant the apple trees in this Vego bed here. It's about 7 feet long, 2 feet deep, and it's currently home to several super blue lavender plants that are going to be removed temporarily. I need to cut them back pretty hard too. I haven't allowed them to develop that tough wood center that they do. And by cutting them back hard right now, it'll prevent that from forming. But the beauty of having lavender, and I'm going to put it back in the bed, the beauty of planting that with the apple trees is because it makes a great companion planting. So lavender is very pollinator friendly, which means it's attracting pollinators for the apple trees, and it's a pest deterrent. So I'm going to cut these guys back hard. I also have some random strawberry plants in here as well that I'm going to rehome to another part of the garden. So I'm going to take the lavender out, amend the soil, and start popping the apple trees in. So this is just a temporary spot for the strawberries. This is a variety that I planted last year called Deliz. It's an All-America Selections winner, and the fruit is absolutely delicious. It's an everbearing, so constantly in fruit, and very smaller fruits and very, very sweet. There's a few things I want to do to the soil here first before I plant anything. So last year this was home to corn. Corn's a very heavy feeder, likes a lot of nitrogen. So no doubt this is nitrogen deficient. And because I use the hugelkultur method, the soil naturally lowers as things degrade down below. So I want to top off with some fresh compost. And I've been making compost all winter long with my Vego composter in the house using just my kitchen scraps. So I've got a lot of really nice compost here that I can top off. I'm also going to put in a bit of the true organic fertilizer that's made for raised beds. You know, I had corn in here last year, and just raised beds in general become nitrogen deficient because plants just sap that up. So I wanted to top off with a little bit of the raised bed fertilizer and get the soil really nice and ready to rock and roll so that these plants have plenty of food available to them and have the best start possible. So I mentioned the hugelkultur method, and that is what I use to fill all of my raised beds when I'm first getting started. And what that is just using what you have available to you to line your bed. So I started with a layer of cardboard on the bottom, and then I followed up with whatever compost I had from my tumbler here, raw scraps that I have in my compost jar in the kitchen, and then leaves. I usually, start a new raised bed in the fall, so I'll use leaves and grass clippings. If the grass is not treated, we don't treat our grass with any chemical. So I'll add whatever I've got and just keep layering. It's like a lasagna. Just keep layering it on there, and then I top it off with some topsoil, and then I'll just let that sit for the winter. So, over the course of the first year, all that goodness in there breaks down, and then the soil level naturally shrinks or lowers. So then I've got to come in and top it off with some fresh soil. And that's just how I fill my beds. It's just a much more affordable way to do it, because if I were to order in a truckload of garden soil, I'm gonna pay for delivery for that, and it's not cheap. It's just a more cost-effective way to use up all of your kitchen scraps and make really, look at wonderful soil. Works for me. The recommended application rate for the true raised bed fertilizer is actually, it's a bag. So the whole bag for new plants covers 14 square feet. I've got about 14 square feet here. I'm gonna go half of that because I already put the compost in and I kind of want to stretch things out. So that should be perfectly fine. Now the fun part, planting. And I'm going to plant my trees about 2.5 feet on center. So the all red tree gets about 2 to 3 feet wide, and the Tangy green gets about 2 feet wide. So I'm going to kind of split the difference and do 2.5 feet on center. All that means is I'm measuring the distance from the middle of the trunk of one tree to the trunk of the other tree should be about 2.5 feet. So I'm just going to get them placed in the bed and start digging them in. I'm going to plant these at the same depth they are in the container. This one's going to be a little trickier because it came very loosely packaged in some burlap. I'm going to have to soak this in a bucket. It came right out of the soil, and I just want to make sure it's hydrated properly. So I'm going to give this a soak for a little while. It's just like if you were to go and soak bare root roses, give them a good drink before you get them in the soil. I'm going to let these soak for a little while, a couple hours maybe, and then come back to it and get them in the ground. I just want to make sure they're really well hydrated because I've never received a tree packaged like this before, so we'll see what happens. A quick lesson in planting a bare root tree. It's really easy to do. The most important thing is making sure that the roots are really well hydrated. So what I was doing when I received that burlapped bag, what I thought was a burlapped root ball, I made sure that I watered it really well so those roots never had a chance to dry out. And then when I lifted it out, I realized it's more like a bare root tree. So when you receive a bare root tree, hydration is key. So I've had this soaking in a bucket of water for the last couple hours, and you can see how those beautiful roots here. And what you're looking for when you go to plant it is this flare here. So this is where the graft union is. You can see the graft, actually the graft is right about here. So planting depth is going to be right where these roots originate. So I'm going to plant it up right there, and I'm not going to go any deeper because I want to make sure that I'm not completely burying that graft union, because if you do that, the plant likely, or the tree likely, won't live for more than a few years. It'll just drown. So that is the depth I'm going to plant it at. And I'm probably going to need, I got a couple bamboo poles here. I'm going to need some stakes for this because it gets pretty windy back here. And I'm going to have to make sure that it's nice and secure in the ground so it has a chance to anchor into all this beautiful soil. I should have mentioned earlier in the video that when you're locating your vegetable garden or fruit garden, your orchard, whatever, you want to put it in the sunniest spot. So at least 6 hours, if not more, 6 to 8 hours. And what that'll ensure is that you get the sweetest fruit that you possibly can. All that nice sun is what triggers all that sugar production and someday these apples. So make sure that these go into your sunniest space. And now I'm just going to pop these into the soil. And now I want to get the lavender planted. And finally, the last step before I mulch, I'm going to water everything in really, really well. And last but not least, some mulch. And I'm just going to tie my tree to this bamboo pole. When I'm putting a support on a tree, I like to do a figure 8, so I'm wrapping the, I'm kind of twisting it between the trunk and the support. And that way I don't have any, I minimize the chance of it rubbing. This is curving up into the tree and I don't want it to cause any friction and create any wounds on the trunk. So I'm going to cut this about right here. This is a fine example of how things usually go in the garden. You kind of get thrown a curveball from time to time, and I certainly wasn't planning to plant a bare root tree, and here we are. But it's not hard as long as you know that you got to keep them hydrated, soak them for a little while, plant them properly, mulch them, keep them watered, and everything should be fine. Things want to grow. So I am looking forward to apples in a few years. Maybe won't have an apple pie for 2, 3, maybe 4 years, maybe longer, who knows. But I'm really happy and excited to see how these things fill in and just to have beautiful flowers, not this spring because it looks like they've already flowered, but next spring for sure. So anyway, I will keep you posted on how things go, and thanks for watching, guys. Catch you in the next one.